One, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha Burns, and I am the head of marketing at TraceAir Technologies. And today's webinar is all about master plan communities and optimizing site development for these large projects. I'd like to welcome my panelists and thank them for joining me, and I would like to thank you all for joining me as well. Guys, let's go around and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and tell the audience a little bit about your experience with master plan communities. We'll start with Tom.
Hello, I'm Tom Oliver. I'm the president and founder of the Oxland Group. We are a master plan developer based in North Texas. I've been in the business for at least 25 years and kind of different aspects. And where we kind of reside is creating kind of value-added master plans throughout Texas.
Mark, I'll have you go next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Garinger. I'm Director of Land Development for the Howard Hughes Corporation. Howard Hughes develops master plan communities really across the United States, from Wall Street to Waikiki. I work specifically in the Bridgeland community. It's in the northwest portion of the Houston market. We also have the Woodlands and the Woodlands Hills here in the Houston market. We also develop in the Las Vegas market, Summerlin, and as well as out in Hawaii, Ward Village, and a brand new master plan community that's coming online in Arizona called Village Ranch. So we take a lot of pride in the master plan communities that we are doing, and I look forward to this discussion today.
And Quincy?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Quincy Crow. I'm the owner of Open Space TX. We do contract management, fee development. I have a great privileged chance to work on this painted tree project in McKinney, Texas. So boots on the ground, overseeing the development of a 1,200 phase one lot development. So get a chance to work with contractors, cities, subcontractors almost every day. A lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again. Let's jump into just a quick discussion about master plan communities and what makes them unique and challenging as compared to a typical home building development. Tom, I'll direct it to you first.
Yeah, I mean, the master plan community is it's the best way to describe it, I guess, is best way to describe it is a story that I just had. I was just meeting with a potential landowner today, and I've never met these folks before. They have a unique piece of property, and they're like, "Well, what do you do?" I'm like, well, we build master plan communities, right? And they said, "Well, you mean you're just not a home builder?" And I'm like, "No, we're not just here to build homes. I mean, we're building everything that has to do with the community." And I think that's basically like how we're different. Is there's a lot of groups out there who out there, they just need to go buy land to provide housing, or they're trying to buy land to make a profit margin. Our master plan community is kind of pulling it all together. So it's a mix of uses, the infrastructure, the amenities, the parks, everything that makes up kind of the space where people live, work, and play.
Yeah. Mark, what would you say?
Exactly right. Yeah, it's kind of placemaking. It's creating that community. It's not just the homes, it's the recreation, it's planning for effective transportation, whether that's vehicular or pedestrian or a bike, planning for commercial areas, office space, restaurants, schools, places of worship, kind of putting that all together so in a logical.
Yeah. And Quincy, being kind of the boots on the ground, what do you see kind of some of the big differences are there?
So for instance, in this 1,000 acres that we've got approximately, we are looking at every bit of that 1,000 acres, all the edges of the lake, all the woodlands, all the open space, connective tissue. There's not one of those places that's just kind of in the back corner. Everything's designed, everything's touched. We at least know how we're allocating all that land. So a great opportunity to get a great network of parks. I think of what would have been lot development or conventional suburbia back in the 1980s and 90s. It would have just been rows of lots, streets, and then that's it. And the city would have taken on the parks or whatever, but this includes all of it. And so we account for all of that in how we go about pricing it, budgeting it, making it happen on the ground.
Yeah, I can imagine that these types of projects pose unique challenges. So I'll direct this to you first, Mark. What are, some of the biggest issues that you face either on your current or previous projects, and what kind of keeps you up at night with these master plan communities?
Well, it's like any project, right? It's communication. It's making sure that all the different parts are working in unison towards the common goal. That's generally the what keeps me up at night, making sure, well, who's not on the same page, but it's having that ability to kind of tie everyone together and go towards the same direction. It's really helpful.
Yeah, Tom, do you experience the same issue?
I mean, totally. I mean, I think there's always kind of challenges going on, and depending on the market and the cycle and geographically where you are. But I mean, I can speak kind of in present term to do the communities like like Mark or Quincy and I do. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to make financial sense of it, particularly with land prices the way they are right now. You buy 1,000 acres and you got to sit on it for how long to go do the vision and do the entitlements and do the planning. So it becomes, to do a master plan, I think successfully, I think you got to just be extremely flexible and nimble to do, projects like that and have kind of creative foresight to work on a deal structure that you can, pull all that together. I mean, the time and the money that you invest. I mean, you invest a ton of time and money up front for a return that you get years down the road. So that's the biggest challenge, and I don't think there's anything new or surprising about that. It's you're playing the long-term vision and the long-term game. But for me, what keeps me up at night currently is just the labor shortage. And labor shortage across the board. And I don't care if you're a city employee, a planner, an engineer, a contractor. It's very, very difficult. You wake up in the middle of the night, figure it out. How can we get something done when we don't have the people to do it?
Yeah, wow. And Quincy, what's your perspective on that?
I term it shepherding a project. So we take that vision, that master plan vision, and it goes into this big machine of consultancies and land planners and engineering. And then you've got to take that on the ground, and the whole time kind of fending off constraints and externalities, things that the city might throw at you, things that the environment might throw at you. All those things, you've got to carry that through to delivery. And so a lot of times what keeps me up at night is, what's happening on that one part of the project, what is going to come out of nowhere and kind of, impact that vision or those intentions or that objective that the engineer had in his design. So a lot of it is just wanting to see the whole project all the time. And you've only got 24 hours in a day.
Sure. I mean, so you guys know we couldn't go through this webinar without discussing technology a little bit. So, let's hear from you, Quincy, a little bit more about how technology is helping you manage some of these challenges, and what benefits you're seeing, especially during the site work phase.
Yeah, Mark had alluded to it earlier. Communication is a huge issue, and so I want the city on the same page that I'm on. I want to be able to communicate with my engineer. I want to be able to grab the contractor and show him exactly what everybody else is saying. I think that's how we're trying to leverage technology, trying to leverage whether it's video conferencing or TraceAir, trying to get everybody around a table or in the same place at the same time. And in years past, it would have been, we need to get everybody on site on a truck bed, around a set of plans, walking over to the corner of that project and looking at something. So trying to use technology to really maximize that efficiency.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, Bridgeland is 11,400 acre project. We've got 3 different villages currently under construction. So as you can imagine, we're spaced out. And so being able to tie that space to a single location, such as on your screen or on your phone, wherever you're carrying being able to communicate back and forth and see basically real time. And every week that we fly, for example, the drone through TraceAir, being able to see that update live, it's extremely helpful using that technology.
Right. So we're TraceAir is providing weekly flights for you, and then you guys are using the platform to get into the project, remotely. Correct. Yeah. And then is that similar to what you guys are doing, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, TraceAir is a great tool just on the technology, but I just think in general, technology has been just the lack of labor and other things that are going on is, let's leverage. We're trying to leverage technology as best we can. I mean, I think I think the world is particularly woken up here, particularly with the pandemic of what's happened. And with, just from a business operational model of what we're trying to do, we're trying to be small and nimble. And leveraging technology, leveraging the Zoom calls and doing this allows me, I mean, I can live in multiple states, which I do, and operate in Texas, but the labor thing changes overnight because it doesn't matter where you live anymore. So I can get the best talent that I can to help us. That maybe we're overloaded in North Texas, but I can find somebody who's working in another part of the country and bring them on part of the team, and it's kind of a seamless transition. So, I mean, that's to me is kind of a paradigm shift, just kind of on a business operational model that allows us to use different technologies. I mean, the TraceAir thing. I mean that's a component, whether you're using technology to do a better consumer experience on your marketing side, and linking it to your websites. I think we as a development industry has been behind the curve. And I think we're to the point where, we have some catching up to do. And I think because of the labor and pandemic and all this other stuff that's going on, it's kind of forcing us to think, different avenues.
Yeah. Could you expand on that a little bit more about how it affects your hiring and labor? So you're saying you can have people managing projects from almost anywhere?
I mean, whether they're managing projects or maybe they're a different engineer, a different planner, or a different consultant, it's now, we're using that technology that, we can be small and nimble, and we can bring outside folks to be, lack of a better term, they're outside employees or they're contract employees that may fit for that project or that need. And you don't have to be sitting down the office here around the corner just waiting. I feel like by doing this, I can get A-level talent that really kind of fits the project. And because we're using technology and the tool, I mean, you've got guys like Quincy who's helping me out in the construction management side. We're using TraceAir technologies. The perfect example is Quincy is now out there making decisions and solving problems versus spending half his time, in his pickup truck, counting erosion control or counting lots. Now I've got focused people who can really solve problems. And I think that's a kind of a game changer because you have a tool like TraceAir that I can get it every week and know exactly what's going on my project and tell the city and all of that. So to me, that's what's kind of changing just kind of how the workflow of our business.
Yeah. Actually, Quincy, can you follow up a little bit and, kind of explain how you're using, technology and tools like TraceAir to make better decisions?
Well, and one of those big challenges that we have in land development is it's a very contentious industry. We've got construction, I've mentioned the city, you've got environmental factors. So a lot of times it's really about how do you effectively communicate, how does everybody kind of get on a level playing field, so to speak. One of the early conversations Tom and I had was, do we offer the city access to TraceAir? And that, in years past, what cities would often look at is what they could see out of their window as you're driving that pickup around a job site, or the photos that I would send to a development client or my management. In this case, the city has the same view of the site as we do, and our consultants have the same site of the view as we do through TraceAir. And recent issue came up. We had an environmental erosion control problem, And the city called me and I said, well, where is this? That would normally be 2 hours out of our day and talking about it. And where is it at? She just sent me a screen clip. There it is right there. I saw where she was standing or where, yeah, there was a little blue dot where she was. And she said, this is exactly what needs to be taken care of. And it really takes a lot of the contention out of it. Who said what, where you at? That's not the place. A lot of confusion and misdirection. So in going back to Tom's decision-making ability, it helps when I talk to a subcontractor. I was out, with the retaining wall contractor and can take them right to the place, show them with overlays, where we're standing, can build that retaining wall there. That's something that typically I would have to have a surveyor go out, lay a line. We'd have to, it was so much easier to just pull it up. And I'm using it from, we did trails mapping, we did retaining walls. I talked to fence guys. So almost everybody that comes in contact with me gets to see where they're at, and I can really orientate myself on a job site, especially one as large as some of the job sites we're working on. So,
yeah, that's great. So I wanted to let everybody in the audience know I should have mentioned at the start, we will open it up to questions. So please, if you have them, put them in the Q&A chat, and we will take some time at the end to answer them. I see one that already came through, so we'll make sure that we answer that toward the end of the webinar. While we're on the topic of technology, where are you guys seeing prop tech going? What tools, what other tools do you use? What other tools would you like to see out there? I guess I'll pose it to you, Mark, first.
Wow. There's a lot of tools out there, and the tools are great if people use them, if people know how to use them. So that's usually the challenge with technology that's fresh on the scene. It's some people that are real smart know how to use it, but there's usually a little bit of a learning curve. So the best technology is ones that can be adapted quickly. Other technology we're using, things like Runway, where we're able to track our builder developed lots and the availability of those, and kind of push those out to outsider view, so they can see what lots are on the ground and what's available. That's something that we're looking at and utilizing. But anything that can be done not only to communicate, but also just make that quick decision, whether it's for a consumer or people that are putting lots on the ground and infrastructure on the ground, or the regulatory environment. All those aspects of technology.
What about you, Tom?
I'll echo the same thing. Look, Mark, we're using Runway too. It's a great tool. It's great tracking. Imagine, we're tracking inventory for our lots, real time as they sell and they come on the market, where we used to have something to have somebody out there to go drive them. Right. That's a great tool. Just some of the, we did stuff, and I know Mark did in their group, they did some virtual models with some other groups. And really, we were kind of starting that pre-pandemic. That's happened. That was kind of maybe changing a little bit of the sales process. So you see not only development changing, your management changing, your, the ability to buy a home. And now, even today, it's like you can, even with some of your lifestyle events or how you're operating from an HOA perspective, there's great tools out there for that. The old days of just, going off a gridded paper PDF calendar, it's archaic today. But I will echo to what Mark is saying about that too, is like, you do have to have, with all this new technology, and I saw the chat here from Rodney Hall, and I know he's a big tech guy too. But you got to have people know how to use them, and you have to. In our business now, is like, well, do you have to hire somebody who's kind of managing that? So your profile, who you're bringing into your business, is changing, and it's evolving in front of us. So you need to, tools are all great and everything, but if you don't have the intellectual knowledge or the patience to go figure it out, then don't waste your money. So there's several tools out there, and I'm just elated to see these new tools kind of come to the market.
Well, let's dig into Rodney's question a little bit. He says, technology works provided people know how to use it. What obstacles have you run into where the person or group on the receiving end struggles with technology? For example, we hear that some cities were more enabled and savvy than others when presentations went virtual. What do you guys have to say to that? Tom, I'll let you respond first.
That last one's a funny one because I was dealing with this. I mean, we had a Zoom call for like an hour, and I think we spent 30 minutes just them trying to figure out their camera. You know, we were like a year into this. You know, the show. I was like, "You haven't figured this out yet?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" But I mean, and he's right though. I mean, you got to have somebody, you know, to help quarterback. Or you know, the other thing that you have to worry about too is going to be people don't embrace it, and like, "Why I can't figure this out?" You know, is that being lazy, or is that the right person for for the job?
Do you find that that when you guys are using TraceAir, do you have this issue, or has it been a little easier to adopt?
I think TraceAir, and I've actually had a chance to speak with some of TraceAir's guys, the back end guys, and I think there's been a lot of intention made to make sure that it's simplified. And I was asking about there was some tool that I had asked, can we do that? And they said, well, you can, but it just makes it too complicated. And I think getting back to the prior question, there's really two factors, even when I think of my own personal use. It's got to be relevant. In other words, it's got to be quick and refreshed, and it's got to be current, and then it's got to be easy to use. And so everything from GPS, all the surveying stuff, all the georeference stuff, including TraceAir, it's got to be current and relevant for what I need it. And then it's got to be easy to use. And I think those go hand in hand. So I think the ability for people just to open it up in a web browser, it's just on my phone. It's not an app. It's not something that I need to install. That's the first step. And then I think the biggest thing is that, at least in our project, we're flying it weekly. So every Thursday, it's kind of like a miniature Christmas. You get your link and you're like, oh man, this was yesterday already. You can see what's been done in a week. And it's really easy. I've walked contractors and consultants through it. Look on the left side of your screen, go to overlays, blah, blah, and they can follow along. It's really actually very simple. It's great.
Yeah.
I just want to add a little bit to that. So when I first introduced TraceAir to some of my team, they're like, well, we've seen drones before, and oh, we don't need to worry about that. We've got our own in-house. And after about a month of them actually using it, because it is so easy, they're number one surprised at how easy it is. And number two, how quickly and how relevant it is. And it is just a fantastic tool in that regard because it's so simple.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about, what some of, you guys are building some, massive projects, and you've been doing it a while. So I'd like to share with the audience a little bit what, best practices and lessons learned you guys have, advice for the audience. Mark, we'll start with you.
Yeah, starting early as best you can. You never know when the market's going to take off.
Do you mean in construction or in planning, or all of the above?
I mean, all the above, right? I mean, but yeah, planning starts the whole thing. So you can only construct what you design. You can only design what you plan for, right? So just kind of making sure that you keep that steady drip of planning well out in front of the need of the end product, because sometimes it could take 2 years to get from the time that you're planning it to when something's on the ground to sell. So it's and try and just be on top of that.
That's great. That's great. Tom, I'll pose it to you next.
Yeah, I think I got like two big things. And I think Vinny, and I think Mark's got it said the best. I mean, their communities are huge. All right. I mean, they take forever. And I think what you notice on a large tract of land is you have to be nimble and flexible. I mean, whatever you think your best plan is, it's going to change. I mean, the market changes, almost daily. The city, politics of the city change. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen. So being able to adjust with the market, good times, bad times, what's selling, what's not selling. And to me, the second other most critical lesson learned is, really just, it gets down to people, is find the right people. the best talent of them, give them direction, and get out of the way. Just let them do what they're good at. And to me, those are the two biggest lessons learned in my career.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Quincy?
I'll platform off of what Tom is saying. You know, it has everything to do with finding good people and then taking care of them. And relationships are so key to this. I remember, you know, being interviewed and kind of being turned on to land development and was told it's all about firefighting and babysitting. And so how do you mitigate those? How do you mitigate those emergencies or those problems in being able to communicate and get everybody to get along? And right, we've all heard like everything we need, we learned when we were in kindergarten, and it's just playing together nicely and effectively communicating and making sure we are working as a team. It really does come down to that. You've got some great guys on site, people who know what they're doing, great civil engineers that can design this project. It's just getting everybody on the same page and really helping them see the ultimate vision. So.
That's great. So I guess I'll, start the Q&A portion. A question / comment came in, which I think is really poignant, and I'd like to get your guys' perspective on it. It's a little long, but I'll read it. If you turn on your TV or open your computer, you've heard about the massive housing shortage that the US is seeing. This problem is going to take years of extremely high volume home building to catch up. The knee-jerk reaction is to simply throw up as many homes in a short amount of time as possible. Master plan communities, by definition, are built with a lot more planning, thought, and care. How do you reconcile these differences, and how do master plan communities fit in? And I guess I'll go to Tom first.
A great question. I mean, it's top of mind every day. I mean, it's right. I mean, there's a shortage. And I think, two things I mentioned about being nimble and flexible. And I mean, I had this conversation today where, we're working on, I mean, we're just trying to keep up, right? Just keeping up the demand of the product. And we think we got it all figured out. We got it all, the right lot sizes and the right mix, and we're going to sell to this builder. And they're like, well, we don't want those anymore because everyone else is building those and we want these. And so being tuned with the market to understand, to me, because what that shortage is maybe different from one jurisdiction to the next, depending on, all the demographics and all those things that are going on, staying, on top of that. But it's also about discipline. You got to be disciplined. I mean, to have standards and, in place, the guidelines to invest in plan. What all the builders, quite honestly, should be doing, and I had this conversation on another panel a couple of weeks ago in Chicago, is like what they need to be do not get lazy on design, because this is not going to last forever. So the ones who are investing, and I think the master plan developers who are investing with the right talent, the right consultants, are still on their game. But I think you're going to see some slippage out there of other folks just putting lots on the ground.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mark, what's your perspective on that?
It's as a master plan community, it's important to keep kind of the eye on the full community, and that's from big houses to little houses, right? So I think throughout history, master plan communities are kind of been nimble in that regard, but they're keeping the eye on the big picture. They're not just constantly chasing, whatever market is driving say a smaller home, right? But you still are building the lots for the larger homes because they'll come back. And it's important to kind of keep that full spectrum of home buyer in your community, because that it strengthens the cultural component of the full community. So I think there's a lot of experience in NPCs regarding being nimble and following that perspective. But, we want to avoid that knee-jerk reaction.
Sure. Yeah, you guys, both touched on being able to, move with what buyers want and what the society, is really craving in their communities. Quincy, since you have this, more unique perspective of getting to work with different developers and on different projects, what trends are you seeing in terms of master plan communities?
Well, and I kind of want to take a step back too. He's just talking about market demand and the shortage in the market, but you're also looking at labor shortage and material shortage. So it really is a lot of intentionality. And I think what I'm seeing is a much more, and I'd like to think the trend is moving more towards outdoor spaces, how do you plan those connective tissues, whether it's trails or amenity centers, the once envied, amenity center with a pool, that's now everybody's got that. But what do you do to really make that place tie in and really connect people to the place that they're living? I think master plans now, especially when you've got a millennial buyer, you've got people that really are looking for purpose, people that are really looking for something to buy in. They just don't want a lot or a location. They want a community. So you're tasked with creating these great spaces where people connect, where people form friendships. And really, when we're out there developing and planning, it's so much on the front of our minds to think about how are people going to engage this space? How is this community going to be made, not just a bunch of lots sold? And we've been reminded even from marketing folks, people don't connect with units or front footage. They connect with homes and trailheads and trails, and they want to know where they're moving and moving to. So I think some of those trends, and I hope to see the value being put on it, because when you talk about market demand and then labor shortage and then material shortage, you look at escalating costs, and it's really easy to look at the spreadsheet and go, man, we got to cut the green spaces out. We got to cut the parks out. And those are some of the most valuable places that we've got.
So I'd like to hear, Mark, your perspective on some of these, more of amenity or outdoor spaces. Financially, how do those play into it?
I think they attract the buyers. I mean, especially right now in this market, having the green space, having the ecologically friendly communities where you're looking at the entire habitat from pollinator plants to the bees to the water's edge plantings. That just brings folks to your communities and makes them a buyer. Mm-hmm. So you spend a little bit more on green spaces and open spaces and recreational activities that are layered on, quite frankly, land that you needed for some other purpose anyway. You can layer those different benefits. You get the economic benefit, but you also are creating that sense of space and activating it where it can be utilized from residents. And that I'll put that all together, and that's a pretty attractive package for a buyer.
So there is an ROI you're seeing on investing in these amenities.
Sure. I mean, I think you can look at your master plan communities and then the non-master plan communities. They sometimes sell the exact same house, but you'll see a premium in the MPC. And then when the economy does go down, you'll also see that flight to quality. You'll see people buying in the MPCs versus the non-MPC.
Tom, is that your experience as well?
The flight to quality, but I'm going to be very bullish on MPCs right now because the way we used to design them, where there were, traditionally they've always been more greenfield. They've been out, they're further away from their appointment centers. But just how people are living today is changing. It's more of there's daytime activities, nighttime activities. So the way we program it needs to be a 24-hour cycle now. And I think we have to invest in these amenities, these open spaces, or what services can we bring to our community that you don't have to get a car and drive miles and miles to get to. So the amenity discussion of what value do you bring, it doesn't even need to be a physical amenity. It could be some of the social infrastructure or getting creative on how do you create a lifestyle that maybe you would find maybe in an urban or small village setting, and how do you bring that to the community? So those are the kind of discussions that we think about every day. And I think that appetite with the changing demographic is only going to increase. So I really, it's so important to invest in that time and in those type of amenities, because that's the end of the day, like Mark's right. It's like, that's what's going to sell, and that's where you're going to get the premium.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, let's talk about, even more, smaller, more typical developments that might be, much, much smaller projects that aren't master plan communities. Do you think that it would be beneficial for everybody to be looking at these amenities and green space and trying to work that in? Or is this really something only specific to master plan communities?
Oh, no, to me, I mean, it can be any scale. Obviously the dollars and what you can do changes a little bit, but there's still premium. I mean, there's premium. I don't care if you've got a 30-acre townhome deal, you got to have, well, how can you make that valuable? And it could be some very simple open space or some sort of community gathering space, or is it on the dogs or connect, dog park, whatever it is. It's just, I don't care what scale it is, it needs to be, that thought process needs to be right up there with your planning, your entitlements, and your engineering.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think to Tom's point too, a lot of these municipalities, a lot of the cities that we deal with, they want that connectivity as well. They want those amenities as well. And it isn't, I don't think a master plan, I know there are buyers that they just don't want a master plan. They want to be in a smaller community, or they just want their lot, or they don't want to be in an HOA. But I think the cities themselves, and I think we've seen it with Painted Tree, where the city of McKinney is just as excited to connect these spaces to their infrastructure and their trails and their master plan as we are to engage that space as a community.
That's
Being
great.
able to fit those all together, I think, is key. And so if you are a smaller community or smaller project, how does that fit into the larger picture, into the greater community? I think that's what we all generally as humans want. Right? We want to connect to that community. So, I agree.
Got it. I want to switch gears to another question that I received, which is going back to the technology a little bit. So you guys have some of these tools. Are you sharing them? Who are you sharing them with? Are you sharing them with contractors? Are you sharing them with public agencies? And what are some of the benefits to that? Mark, I'll go to you first.
So, immediately we shared some of this technology with our close partners, right? It's the engineers, then maybe the agencies, we start sharing with them. But as we get more comfortable with that new technology, sharing it with a wider audience.
So what benefits do you see from that transparency?
I think trust, if we can all believe that this technology is helpful, then the next time we have a question, hey, we have this idea or this concept, they'll remember, oh yeah, we did this once before and it worked out well. So having that trust.
Mm-hmm. So Tom and Quincy, you guys are, working on the same project. How are you guys, sharing this information? Obviously, it's being shared with each other, but are you sharing technology and TraceAir with other consultants or contractors on the project? And, what benefits are you seeing?
We're sure. It's open book. I think it's all about transparency. And what I found is, we're sharing with everybody. Quincy, I don't know who, I think Quincy's sharing is his neighbors right now. I don't know.
No, not that far. But yeah, anybody who steps out on that project site, I want them to reference that set of information. I've gone as far as to even drive to, instead of driving to site, driving to a consultant's office or a contractor's office, showing them how to log in, getting them set up with it and saying, okay, I'm going to be referencing this from now on. And yeah, almost everybody that I'm dealing with, I'm sending them a link so that they can just log in. I tell them, and I don't know, I know City of McKinney, you've got builders. It goes from the top all the way down to that guy who's going to be building retaining wall.
I do think it's a tool, and we should share the tool. And I do think that, and I've kind of realized here using a tool like, TraceAir or Runway or some of these others that we're using right now is it just kind of shows us, us as call it a competitive advantage, where we have sophistication. And whether you're walking into a new city or you're courting a new customer or the end user, maybe the homeowner sees something, their website is all connected. It's a differentiation. It's just, we as an industry just got to catch up. So I don't think it is a competitive advantage, but I don't think we should be going out there and protecting it and hiding it. We should be sharing it all.
Got it. Yeah. That makes complete sense. And, our philosophy here is that transparency is only a good thing for construction projects. Anytime you can reduce disputes, you can just have it all out there. It can just keep projects moving a lot more efficiently and faster without these back and forth, trying to solve problems. You can just solve them so much faster. Another question came in that I think is really interesting, and I'd like to hear your perspective. I'll go to you, Tom, first. What are the qualities that land developers are looking for in a building partner and a home builder, and what matters in the land development businesses in these relationships?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It is a real-time question. Yeah, the relationships, again, are everything. We're build our business model around relationships. But you get tempted, right? And whether you're dealing with a builder, you get tempted on this the newest shiny thing, and you can, start down that path or that relationship or start a new relationship, but you can't compromise on your integrity or what you're trying to do. And so I think dealing is, we're looking at, building partners, for example. It means everything. If you just do what you say you're going to do, we're going to do what we're saying we're going to do. And, if you start, and I can see a lot of relationships go awry when that simple trust gets broken. So, I mean, that's such a relationship. That's a great question. Great question.
Mark, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I would echo everything Tom said. It's all about that relationship, and you don't want to damage that relationship. It may take years to develop it, but it only takes one slip that can destroy it. And you're spending a lot of energy, a lot of effort to repair it.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. So got like 2 minutes left. Any final thoughts, last piece of advice from anybody?
I just want to clarify too, this TraceAir is not just about the drone stuff. The ability to measure perimeters, the ability to do cross sections, the ability to do stockpile. I think there's a whole level of analysis that comes with this tool. That's not just about, okay, I want to take a screenshot and send it to somebody. It is really, it helps kind of analyze the site itself, and that's a huge help on the ground. I know we've just been talking about the drone aspect or the footage, but there's a whole set of tools that comes with it. So,
yeah, I mean, I should mention, if anybody would like to know more about TraceAir, please reach out to our team. You can visit traceair.net, send in a request form. We can show you a demo there. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining. We do have just 1 minute left. If you would like to learn more, please reach out to TraceAir. You can, as I said, visit our website, fill out a demo there. If you have any questions, any additional things you would like to know about, any direct questions for the panelists here today, please send them to me directly. You can send them to my email address, which is sb@traceair.net, and I will field them appropriately. We'd appreciate any of your feedback. Any last words from Tom and Mark?
I'll end with a quick story. So as is what we do in our business. We can kind of geek out and kind of talk about all this fun stuff and technology. But, as we live your everyday life, the story is, I've had this number of times, is when somebody asks you, like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, well, I do, build communities. Oh, do you build homes? No, I build communities. Like, what do you mean? Like, we build the roads, blah, 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 the lots. And they're like, you mean the city doesn't build that? So I always kind of laugh at that, because I've gotten that question so many times. Just we have a kind of a complex group and team of technology and consultants, and a lot of people don't even know what we do. I think it's kind of a funny story.
Well, it's a shame you guys don't get the credit.
Thanks for having us, Samantha. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining, and thank you to our audience for joining us as well. Again, if you have any more questions, you can direct them to me at sb@traceair.net or visit our website, traceair.net, and I will field any questions you may have for the panelists too. So thank you again, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.
thanks.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye, y'all.
everybody. Bye, Mark. Bye, Tom.